Well, let's get across the latest in the tariff situation with a focus on India. Muguntan Siva joining us from India Avenue Investment Management. Muguntan, good to see you again.
Likewise, Andrew.
So where are we at with those negotiations? I see forecasts that India could incur direct export losses of around $14 billion should these tariffs follow through, which is almost 0.5% of GDP.
Yeah, look, I think India today is not a huge incumbent exporter. Its trade with the US is around about $90 billion overall. So I don't think it's in a position where it's going to incur significant loss. I think there could be some gains as well, because India and the US has been having some conversations around aspects of a free trade agreement. JD Vance himself was over there talking to Modi just last week. So we expect that as a course of these discussions, there'll be a little bit of give and take.
Which sectors in particular would be hit? Electronics, gems, jewellery, machinery?
Yeah, if you look at India's largest exports, they're typically gems, jewellery, refined petroleum, electronics, pharmaceuticals increasingly, and of course on the services side, IT.
All right, so is there any word as to, certainly we have heard from US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested that India could become one of the first countries to actually finalise some sort of trade agreement with the US.
Yeah, look, we kind of think that this is an India moment in the sense that they could be able to grab more market share amongst the value chain, and this is largely going to happen because I think in this new world of trade, we're going to see the cheapest or the lowest cost producer win out in many situations. So in areas where perhaps there's less dumping from China, India can assert a greater position. Pharmaceuticals is one we've talked about many times. They've currently put that on pause with a view to looking at where that might play out over the next 90 days. And I think what we'll see is India emerge in a relatively strong position compared to the rest of the world.
Well, in fact, Scott Bessent has said, talked about India in favourable terms, saying that it's got fewer non-trade barriers plus no currency manipulation. So, I mean, it's certainly positive talks as far as the Trump administration is concerned.
Yeah, look, I think the US recognises it can't go against most of the major economies. India is one where the trade relationship is yet set in stone. So I think there's potential there to manoeuvre for a favourable situation for both economies.
How is the Indian economy travelling at the moment?
So the IMF came out with a forecast just last week where they had India pulling back their growth from 6.5 to 6.3 and 6.2 for the next couple of years. So I don't see that as a major pullback. I think India has gone through a bit of a cyclical slowdown period post the election last year because the government started to divert more allocation towards consumption rather than perhaps infrastructure, capex type industries. But we'll see that start to resume now going into FY26. So I expect at over 6% growth, India will still be far and away the fastest growing major economy.
So are you seeing opportunity for India in the current circumstances?
Definitely. I think in terms of fitting into the global trade picture, India is not a big player. It's largely been a local demand-driven, local consumption-focused economy. Herein lies the opportunity to participate more in value chains and global trade.
Is there speculation because as far as China is concerned that it's going to use this decoupling of US and the global economy, that China's going to step up? Do you see that perhaps India is going to do the same and perhaps try to forge some new trade partnerships?
Definitely. So this is, as I said, it's the moment that India has sort of sought out where it can build itself a greater niche in certain industries where it already has practiced expertise. I think, we're talking about a US recession and IT spend dropping, but in fact, when we listen to all the quarterly earnings announcements of the US companies, they're still talking about the need for tech capex spend. So, for example, we think India will continue to take market share globally in IT services. Pharmaceuticals, we've discussed many times, India is carving a niche of expertise as a low-cost producer of scale. And I think other areas will emerge as well. We've seen Apple say that a greater level of production is going to go to India over the course of the decade. So that's electronic goods. And we think in areas like chemicals, probably once some of the excess inventory issues that perhaps is facing China are resolved, India can carve its niche out there as well.
And what are the prospects for Australia-India trade relations at this point?
Look, I think that is always on the agenda. I think we had Albanese over there having discussions with Modi, and I think potential to grow that can increase significantly because it's really been relatively minimal so far. So whether it's agri, whether it's IT services, whether it's education, there's substantial opportunities for the two countries.